Welcome to Quit Smoking with Debi Hall. Today we are teaming up with Debi's Diner to record both on video and on audio our meeting up with Paula, who was my first success story in working this impossible smoking program. Paula and I have been friends since the early 90s, and she decided in 2003 to try my program out. And so she's here to talk about it, lo, these many years later. Today is my 36th year off of cigarettes, and so I always wear sequins on that day, and I'm pretty excited about that. So that makes it a perfect day to meet with Paula. You will be able to see this video on Debi's Diner podcast on YouTube, and you can listen to the audio on both Debi's Diner podcast and Quit Smoking with Debi Hall, wherever you stream your services. This is a free deal, and you are welcome to donate if you get excited. So I'm always teamed up with my Nia, who is just a little whippersnapper. She is our guru for social media. Nia, tell us what's going on with you.
Yes. Hey, Debi. Hey, Paula. So I'm doing great. I'm here in LA. I am working on some other podcasts, doing marketing and social media. So I'm excited to be here with y'all and get some questions from your listeners.
And tell us about your podcast that's in its third season.
Yeah, my podcast is called Put on Your Neck, and I created it in college with one of my friends, and we basically just create a forum to invite guests on our show that are Black women to talk about anything under the sun that they want to, from comedy to what's happening in the world to astrology. So yeah, check it out if that sounds like it might be interesting to you.
That's fantastic, Nia. And we'll put a link to that here too.
Yeah.
Now, throughout this podcast, Nia is going to be fielding questions from social media, and she may even have a few questions herself. And so Paula is, for about 10 years after my last cigarette, I decided to put the program I had developed into good use. And Paula has been one of my best friends and one of my greatest success triumphs. And so Paula, how are things going on the golf course? Paula's back in Texas now and playing golf. What's going on with that, Paula?
Well, that's going great. I've been doing that for about 2 years now, so it's moving right along. I got a few pars today. Today was Ladies League, so that's always fun to get out there on the golf course with the ladies and put those balls in the hole. So I don't know, just really good and going great. So that's all I got.
Paula's a wonderful, genius hairstylist, and so she's been part of my life and my hair team. Back in the days when I made her permanent no matter what, and she'd say, your hair's going to fall out on your pillow. So anyway, Paula, let's get to it. Tell us a little bit about your smoking history. When did you start? Why did you stay smoking? That kind of thing. Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, I started way back in the 70s, and I was young and a teenager. My older sister, Karen, was a smoker at that time. She'd been smoking. We were in high school, and she took me out back of the house and gave me a cigarette and said, here, smoke this. Showed me how to smoke. So I thought I was being cool, being taught by my big sister. I thought that's what she was trying to do, is get me hooked up so I'd be nice and cool and be able to hang out with her and her friends. And so we smoked, and she taught me how to do that. But later on in our lives, I asked her, I'm like, why did you do that? Why did you take me out back and do that? And she's like, because I wanted you not to smoke. I wanted you not to like it, to think it was bad. And so it just gave me the whole wrong idea. She didn't say that when we were doing it, but it gave me the whole wrong idea. I thought it was supposed to be being cool. So back then in the 70s, smoking was cool. So that's how I took it. And I just kept smoking from that point on. Of course, didn't like it much in the beginning, but I forced it so I would be cool. Back in that time, you would smoke, and that was the thing, especially going outside at high school and going around the building and sneaking around to smoke a cigarette, and you just thought you were hot stuff, and hanging out doing that. So go across the street to the convenience store and smoke cigarettes there. It was just a thing to do. It was something that was really cool back then, so that's why I smoked.
Smoking at 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to write that little story. So now the first episode of Quit Smoking with Debi Hall podcast is entitled It's Time, isn't it? And that's a very short little video, tutorial that I talk about just having gone through all of the bargaining phases with cigarettes, all of the, maybe I should quit. Well, not really, not to. So tell us a little bit about your decision and the events that led up to your decision that it's time.
Well, I don't really know specifically why. The specific events that led up to it. I just know that smoking was no longer cool by the time I decided to quit. It had changed from a socially acceptable thing to do to a non-socially acceptable thing to do. When I was young and going to the clubs, everybody was smoking. You could go inside and smoke. You could smoke on airplanes. You could smoke in restaurants. You could smoke in the theaters. So it had become where you couldn't even smoke in any place. We used to tease that we weren't even going to be able to smoke outside in our own home. But it had been so antisocial. It got where you weren't part of the crowd, even if you were smoking. You go to a party and nobody let you smoke in their house or in the clubhouse or whatever. So you were outside instead of inside. So I just got where I wanted to quit smoking because it was, non-sociable anymore. So I was an outcast, and I don't like being outcast. I like being part of. So, so I decided I would try. And so I tried several years before I talked to you about it. I had taken one time, the first time I probably remember trying is when I went across country with my kid sister, and she was driving over to Tacoma, Washington for university, go to school at Pacific Lutheran. And we drove across country. So I just thought that would be a great time to not smoke and to try to get used to the idea, because she doesn't smoke and she didn't really want me smoking in her truck. So I drove across country not smoking. And every time we stopped to get gas, I got food. I got all kinds of snackies every time I got somewhere. And I guess I was really kind of bitchy because we got to our destination and my kid sister dropped me off where she was going to be living with the roommate she was going to be living, and said, somebody take her to get cigarettes. I'm out of here. Because by the time we had driven across the country, about 4 days really, she was done with me. She was done with me because of not smoking. So somebody took me to get cigarettes, and I started back smoking, and I smoked another 5 or 6 more years. And so I tried later on that was not using anything. So I tried later on with the gum, and I tried later on with the patches. And the thing about the gum, the thing about the patches is they always keep nicotine in your body. And as long as you have nicotine in your body, you're going to keep craving nicotine. And so that was the hardest thing for me. I think it just changes. I think the nicotine people are just changing where you were getting your nicotine. So you were still addicted to nicotine because you had it in your body. So when Debi was talking about trying to quit smoking with me, we had been hanging out and doing some other things, and she had quit smoking, and she was happier about it. And so we talked about it, and she suggested that I research nicotine. So I did research nicotine and found out how unhealthy it really was for you, and that it was something that they would even give horses to kill them. And it's like, oh, great, that's not what I need. But just find out about it, and found out too that once I quit the nicotine, that it would, in 3 days, I would no longer have any nicotine in my body. So the physical part of the nicotine wouldn't be in there, and I wouldn't be craving the nicotine in that manner. So the research led me to that she suggested that I did. She has a whole lot of I don't remember all the research I did, but there was a lot to do. She suggested I looked up several different things about nicotine, and I did, but I'm not good on restoring all that. She can tell you what all they do to nicotine. But I at least found out that it wasn't a a thing that I wanted to be putting in my body, and that it would go away in 3 days. And then I just have to learn to deal with the obsession and the hand to mouth movement that it goes with nicotine or the smoking habit.
Yeah. We're going to get to those facts here in just a little bit, but I see Nia over there has something from social media. What you got, Nia?
Yeah. So a lot of people are asking, once you decided to quit, what was the motivation to keep you going in the direction to stay quitting, basically?
Well, to be honest, I don't know if I said this a minute ago, but I was getting a headache with cigarettes. I had become allergic to them. So once I woke up and took that first cigarette, I would get a headache, and it would just grow every time I took a cigarette. And so the day that I quit smoking and I didn't light up, I didn't feel bad. I didn't have that tremendous headache by the end of the day. And when you feel good at the end of the day from not smoking, that's a good enough reason not to continue. But I couldn't stay stopped until I had the little tricks that Debi had helped me with. So, but you would think that would be enough. But on those days when I was ready and we had done the research, then it was enough.
Yeah, you'd think burning up a car would be enough. It didn't stop me. So fun fact to insert while Paula brought that up is that in the 90s, when Paula quit, Philip Morris kept reports of their scientific research to slowly kill hidden information. I remember when I was studying to quit smoking, and they said one day they may be suspecting that there could be corporate operatives learning what chemicals to put in cigarettes. We don't know yet, but it's possible. And then today in 2021, Philip Morris and others have no problem posting their new research methods. On March 21st, Philip Morris reported since 2008, we've invested a cumulative $8.1 billion behind our smoke-free products, reflecting research, product and commercial development, product production capacity, scientific substantiations, and studies on adult smoking, understanding of these products, March 15th, 2021. Their new e-vapor products provide inhaled nicotine without combining tobacco. These operate by vaporizing nicotine-containing liquids. Philip Morris now proudly publishes their evidence on their platform, Open Science, PMIScience.com, where they sing the praises of their smoke-free inhalants that are now supposed to be helpful to the environment. Those e-vapor products contain nicotine, a highly addictive substance, but negatively affects adolescent brain development, as well as chemicals used in antifreeze, plant solvent, and artificial smoke in fog machines. They contain carcinogens, chemicals known to cause cancer, including acetaldehyde and formaldehyde, a herbicide primarily used to kill weeds, can cause irreversible lung damage, a chemical linked to a lung disease called bronchitis obliterans, heavy metals such as nickel, tin, lead, and chemical compounds found in car exhaust. So those reports that were hard to find, and I remember very well Paula going to research, and we would go to the library because this was before the days. And she went to the library and researched the contents of a cigarette. And Paula was like, it is very hard to find this information. I think it was even more powerful that it was harder to find. Today, it took me 2.5 seconds to find that information on what their new quarterly report, it's just a quarterly report about how they are proudly researching different ways to keep nicotine in people and keep people addicted. So, Paula, remind me of our conversation to the best of your memory when you decided that you wanted to try my specific program and the conversation that led up to, well, let's try it this way.
I'm trying to remember.
It was 2003.
Right. Plus, it was, like we would hang out and we would just be hanging out. I had just gone through a divorce, and that was one of the reasons, too, I was quitting, is I had just gone through a divorce, and I had actually lost a lot of weight, because you know how that is. You get stressed out and you lose weight. And one of the ladies at my job said, now that you've lost all that weight, why don't you quit smoking? because by the time you gain your weight back, you will, like from this non-smoking, you will be back even where you were. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So then, and you had always talked to me about not smoking because you weren't smoking and I was, and we were hanging out. And so I guess I just posed the question to you about, ideas of, I didn't really realize that you had written a program or a book. You hadn't really said, here, you need to do this. You hadn't pushed it on me or anything because that's just not how you were. And so I had kind of posed the question to you on what do you think? How do you think I can do this? Because I've already tried the patch, I've already tried the gum, and none of that really worked. And so that's when you started telling me about the research. Also with the research, you told me to, figure out how long I'd been smoking, how many years I'd been smoking. I hadn't even realized how many years I'd been smoking. It had been 24 years that I'd actually been smoking. And then you're like, and now figure out how much money you spent on it, and I was like, whoa. So just figuring that kind of stuff out. I was supposed to also figure out my reward. What do I get as a reward if I don't smoke for a week or I don't smoke for a month or whatever, like figure out what you're going to reward yourself with. And then you were kind of like, what would be the one thing that would send you to the store to buy that carton of cigarettes? And, and so that I would be prepared not to do that on that one thing. And so I can't tell you what all that was now. I wrote it all down, but I don't have that all now. So you made me figure out those things. And that was just the start of it. And also you told me to figure out a date, find a date that I wanted to quit. And so that was and we were just in the car. I think we were probably headed to a movie. We did a lot of that, dinner in the movies. And so we were just, and so that's how it was. And so you just kind of got me going. So then when I got all the information, the research, and figured out, my stop day and stuff, I would just come to you with that information. And then you would tell me what the next thing kind of was to do from there.
Yeah. I remember when you made amends to people, which is the icky part of that whole program. And I remember you made amends to your dog. Really, you called me up and you said, I'm just really upset. And I said, okay. And so we sat outside in my little side yard. And I said, I thought, I have no idea what's really this trigger is. And you said you had to sit down and make amends to your dog for all the times of blowing smoke in his face. And it was really upsetting. Were there any other amends that you can remember?
Well, actually, that's kind of funny because my dog actually would sneeze all the time when I was smoking, and people wouldn't think that would be true. But, that was really kind of important. My poor little doggie, all those years suffered from my smoking because I smoked in my house and my dog lived in my house. But that's a good point. I did have to make a list of people that are things that I thought I had harmed from that. And a lot of it, my family really went out of the way to put up with me. My parents didn't smoke, yet if I got in their vehicle or whatever, they would let me smoke, and they wouldn't let anybody else. I have my older sister still smoked, and she couldn't smoke in the vehicle. She couldn't, they let me do things that other people weren't doing, and they really went out of the way to let me be me and smoke. And I had to, when I realized that and how I was imposing all the smoke on people that didn't smoke, including my little sister, those were big amends. Those were big amends to me. I probably owed amends to some of my clients because I would actually time your perm or time your color by how many cigarettes I could smoke. So if your perm had to sit on your head for 10 minutes, I got one cigarette in there, or if your color had to sit on your head for 45 minutes, I could get several if I wasn't applying color to somebody else, So I would time a cigarette. I knew I could smoke a cigarette if I smoked it fast for 7 minutes, and I smoked a long cigarette. So, it's like I imposed my smoking on a lot of people. And it's like figuring out how to make amends or just acknowledge them and tell them that I was really sorry for imposing my will on them and making that smell in their house or in their car, and knowing that they gave me that privilege, even though they didn't give other people that privilege. That's.
Yeah. Now, some of the things that were on the schedule of things to do were really fun. And I can remember, I was trying to remember back to 2003 myself, but one of the things that I remember that stood out to me was when because there's the one little corner of my world is one part of the little program. And it's that one space where there are no cigarettes allowed. I can't go in with cigarette on me. Mine was my bathroom. I had it. I'm a color person, so I like more colors, but I painted my bathroom solid white with a solid white shower curtain, white rugs. It was the pristine area of the house where I could go, and there was no smoke to be found. I sat in the tub, I washed, I had wonderful new shampoo that I can't remember, that was back in the 80s. But I had a great shampoo that a hairstylist had given me, and I had the best smelling soaps and bath salts, and that was my one little corner of the world where there was no smoke at all. And can you remember what that little corner of your world was that you created? No, not at all. Mainly because I wasn't smoking. The whole point was not to smoke. So I didn't ever really say that before I met you. I wasn't not smoking before, not that before I met you, but before we decided to do this. And so, no, I can't tell you I know that. I don't remember that part of it. It seems to me that this is prior to the smoke date, before you were still smoking when we started it. And that was one of the first tasks, was to do that. And it seems to me that the first thing that you set up as your perfect little corner of the world was your station there at the beauty salon. You had it set up where you weren't going to be around it in one of your work thing that smelled of cigarettes. You cut out that business of doing that so that your hair didn't smell like cigarettes. And so that to me was what I remember as being the one little corner of your world, was you said, that was the thing you felt worst about, I think. That probably at work. And I seem to remember you getting there with cleaners and you painted around it. And, because part of the thing is, quitting fooling myself that I think, I have a mint. Nobody knows I've been smoking. I smell like a smokehouse, but I don't think anybody can smell me because I have a mint in my mouth. So that was my, bit of genius for myself. So I think that was one of the first things that we did, was really get into exactly how many other people were smelling smelling the smoke on the hair and everything else. And I think you really cleaned up your station at work. And I can't remember you doing anything at home, but I'm sure you probably did, because you did everything I asked you to do. No matter what I asked you to do, you did it. You're right, I did. But you know what? That would make perfect sense, because the truth is, I didn't know, like you said, you don't know you smell like smoke when you're smoking. You can't smell it, and so that would definitely be true. How just impose maybe not smoking at all around at work, or changing that, or like you said, cleaning up around my station so it wasn't blowing anybody's smoke in anybody's face, or that they didn't have to smell like smoke themselves because I smell like smoke. Because nowadays I realize if I'm heavily smelling like smoke, and I smoked a pack and started on a second pack by the time I quit. Didn't always smoke a whole 2 packs, but I would be starting on that second pack. That's a lot of smoking in a day. So then that does, fold over onto other people, even if it's just like you walk by, that it's now on them, because those fumes are on people, or coming off of you.
And so you're probably right. I don't really remember that, but I could see how that would be very true, that would probably be one of the first things I noticed and would do, you know? So, yeah.
That's what I remember. That's what I remember. I'm just making a notes of the things that I remember about. And one of the things I have like on the top of the list is you did everything I asked you to do. And I don't remember you ever even questioning, because one of the things was to get a coloring book and the color. So your hands are used doing something besides smoking a cigarette. And you didn't give me one bit of lip about that. You went, okay, what kind of coloring book? I just didn't, any kind you like. I mean, you did everything that I asked you to do. So Nia, let's zoom over to Nia and see what she's got on social media.
Yes, so I have a question from Sal the Gal 03, which says, I know smoking cigarettes is bad for your health, which is why I begged my mom to quit. But a friend just gifted her a vape pen because those are safer somehow. And I find it hard to believe, but is it true? So Sal, I did some research. So the Truth Initiative organization did a study in 2018 among US adults that explored whether e-cigarettes help people successfully quit. And they found that successful quit attempts of users using e-cigarettes has 70% lower odds of quitting than non-users. So Sal, you are correct. And this is really important because I myself have a lot of friends and know people who use e-cigarettes like vapes and Juuls. And they also contain nicotine and propylene glycol, which is found in antifreeze and paint solvent and car products. And honestly, there's so much more research that remains to be discovered when it comes to the lasting health consequences of this new format of e-cigarettes. So, moral of the story, no, e-cigarettes do not help you to quit, and you should probably encourage your mom to not use that also. So yeah.
Which is going to be my season 2 of Quit Smoking. We're going to get into that. I don't know anything about vaping because it's before my day, but I intend to learn. So Nia and I will be hosting some more sessions with vapors so that we can both learn about vaping. So I want to put out the word and get some people who are actually involved in vaping and hear what they have to say and what the mythology is so that Nia and I can research and get answers for people. So Paula, do you know anything about the vaping world, Paula? Have you been involved in that or know anybody that is?
I've known a few colleagues that vaped, but you know, in reality, even with the nicotine gum or the nicotine patches, if there's any nicotine in any of it, the fact that you're putting any kind of nicotine in your body, it keeps you addicted to the nicotine. You know, because the patches and the gum were supposed to, quote, be the same thing, you know, oh, you slowly get off of it, but you're still putting it in your body. So you can't get off of it if you got it going in your body. It's almost impossible to do a gradual quitting of an addiction. You know, it's almost all or nothing. And that's the best thing that you got for me. That's the best thing I got out of your program, is that it was all or nothing. It wasn't this slow thing. It's like set a date. I mean, you did suggest maybe smoke a little less. I didn't smoke any less. I just kept thinking about that date, did my research, knew that it was going to come to that. And like I said, the saving grace was the fact that I knew that once I quit smoking, 3 days after I quit smoking to 5 days, I'd be totally out of nicotine in my body. The rest of it would just be a mental obsession as far as hand and mouth things and the straws that you told me to lay around my house. Oh, that was one of the best things, or lay around everywhere, because when I was crazy looking for something to reward myself, I would see the straw and go, oh yeah, I'm looking for a cigarette. I'll chew on this straw, you know, and because everything I did, if I swept my kitchen, I wanted a cigarette for a reward. If I did a load of laundry, I wanted to, you know, it's like I smoked all the time. So I wanted a cigarette to go with it or to reward myself for doing it. And the chewing of the cigarette, the straws or just having one in my hand all the time really helped significant that or snuff that out. But if you're putting any kind of nicotine, whether it's vaping, the gum, the patch, you're still addicted to nicotine.
Yeah, just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
And my nicotine of choice is going to be cigarettes.
Yeah.
You know, now the vape stuff has all the little toys, the little kits, and you know, it looks like a heroin rig to me. But you know, they've all got their little accessories. but my accessories kept me smoking for an extra year.
Right.
Oh, I had beautiful cigarette cases and lighters, and my Bic lighter for I went to the bar and I wanted to look cool. So I never had a Bic lighter. I had a Zippo lighter. Oh yes. I mean, the paraphernalia is half the battle. But so Paula, talk about those straws a little bit, because you were alternating cigarettes and straws up to the quit date. You may not have known it, but I was telling you to do that. I was saying every other, so you smoke cigarette, and then the next time, just do the straw thing. Smoke the straw. I had told you, this is so funny, I had to tell you all. I said, Paula, you're going to smoke the straw just like it was a cigarette. And then you're going to have a mint in your mouth if you're a menthol person like I am, or even for whatever reason, you have a mint in your mouth and you smoke the straw just like it's a cigarette. So Paula's over at my house and she's doing the straw thing, and she's got a straw in her mouth like this. And she is chewing it to 1969. She is chewing on that straw. And I looked up at her and she looked up at her and she goes, I'm going to kill somebody. So getting the nicotine out in 3 days is the 3 days, but she was going through, she really and embraced the curve of knowing that those feelings were going to come up, and just being there. I was there with her to help her go through and help her talk about those things. And but I don't think I ever saw Paula smoke a straw. I saw her chew them down to nothing.
This is true. This is true. I love, and they need to be a nice, strong straw. I would cut them the length of the cigarette, though, like you suggested. But I found there was one fast food restaurant, I think it was actually Chipotle's, that had these really tough straws because, like you said, I chewed them. I was so anxious after quitting smoking. You know, you have that anxiety and the anxiousness. And I gnawed those straws, so they needed to be tough. But, you know, the straws really helped. And actually, it took me 2 years to quit chewing on straws. Now, they weren't near, I wasn't chewing on them near as bad as you said by the end of the 2 years. It was just something to have. But yeah, straws were important, and the chewing sure helped. So.
I did straws for 2 years too. They were red and nobody cared. And they were the exact same length as the cigarettes I smoked. And I had them in my hand. I'm sure it was 2 years. And it gets on and off later on, but it's like every time I felt that anxiety that I would normally pick up a cigarette, I had those straws right there, everywhere. Yes. I had cute little containers. I replaced the accessories for cigarettes with my accessories for my straw containers. Yes. I had them everywhere. So anytime I would have reached for a cigarette, which was just knee-jerk for me, I would have that red straw right there. Now, I found some gold ones. I'm going to put them on the website because I found some that are gold and some different colors and things. I know.
Fun.
Yeah, today I'd have gotten more excited about it. So now, Nia, do you have anything over there on social media? I saw you waving.
I do. So, Max to the Max asked for some advice. He says, my friend is on the road to being smoke-free for 3 months, and he carries this journal around all the time. And we were hanging out, and I took a peek at it. And I didn't think it was a big deal, but he's saying his friend feels really alone and ashamed and anxious about quitting. He says, what should I say to him to let him know that he's not alone? And what's the big deal about keeping a journal?
Well, it depends on what's in this journal. I think I'm a big journaler. I think it's a big deal to write my feelings down and get them out. It helps me sort them out instead of it just playing over and over in my head. Because just the fact that I acknowledge maybe that I feel alone gives me a chance to find a way not to feel alone, you know. But if I don't work out what's in my head and put it on a piece of paper, I can't see the problem to find the solution. Otherwise, it's just crazy in my head, and I just have a squirrel cage going on in there. And so, yeah, and I'm grateful that my partner here doesn't read my journal. I don't think that's always the best thing for somebody to do. But, you know, now that you do know that person feels alone, I think, you know, if any time that person might be looking like they're struggling or anything like that. I guess I would just appreciate, if somebody knew that I was trying to quit smoking, which they did when I definitely probably told everybody because I was probably very anxious and even probably a little more angry than I could be. And so I probably was telling a lot of people. But when you see that happening, maybe just, say, hey, let's take a breather or some way to however that person to be able to take the anxiety and the anger out, because I don't know, maybe that your friend's not near as angry as I was, but quitting smoking let all my feelings come up, and anger is one of my first feelings after fear. It's really fear, but then I get angry because I'm anxious, and I don't like to feel like that. So, but just the fact that that, you can always just kind of pat that person on the knee or whatever and say, everything's going to be okay. And that lets people feel good.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Or both of you watch the podcast and do it together. It's fun to do things together, as long as I'm not holding on to somebody else's recovery is the reason why I'm going to quit smoking. But Paula, one of the things that I go through in the podcast a lot is that folks don't really just know what they're up against. And these corporations that make cigarettes, that make vaping cigarettes, they are spending, in some cases, $800 billion collectively on research of ways to keep people addicted. And I think folks enter into quit smoking ideas and have no idea what they're up against. And they underestimate the power of what they're up against. And, you're talking about corporations that spend billions of dollars figuring out which chemicals will attack which parts of the brain to keep a person addicted, to keep a person slowly dying, because they could make a cigarette that would kill you tomorrow, but they don't. And so they're very well planned. They're a huge machine. And so for me, the only power greater than that machine are my friends that I can work through programs with, and a greater power of my understanding. So one of the things I wanted you to talk about, Paula, was the role that God played in, or your concept of God played in your work in the program, quitting, getting through the withdrawals and so forth. What can you talk about that power?
I definitely believe, that there is a power greater than myself out there, whatever you want to call it. But and to be honest, that's even what I journal to, because if it was just journaling to myself, that would be a broke brain trying to fix a broke brain, and I can't do that. So I kind of journal to a higher power anyway, just whatever you want to call it. But I definitely believe that I need something outside myself. That's another reason I needed somebody like Debi to help me quit smoking. It's like she had done it. So I knew I could. If she can, then I believe I could too. And I believe that power of the universe works through all of us. And so that guidance she was giving me, I believe, was also guidance from that universe, that power of the universe that helps. And so talking to her, and like I said, I told everybody, I needed an excuse for my behavior for number one. Addiction to nicotine was the hardest thing I ever quit. I have quit a few other things, but nicotine was the hardest, and it was the last thing I quit. And it was definitely very hard. And I don't believe we can do it by ourselves. It is definitely something that you need help with to quit, whether it's just a friend like that guy I was talking about. I want to help my friend, but I needed to tell anybody and everybody that I was quitting smoking so they would understand. I wanted them to understand why I was such a bitch, excuse my language, because it's hard. It's hard. It was my best friend, like you said, anything I did, and constantly picking up a cigarette. Every 20 minutes you want a cigarette. Every 20 minutes you have a craving for a cigarette. And so if you're not quitting, you're trying to fill that cigarette craving. And so if that's going to be happening every 20 minutes in your life, that's kind of hard. You got to find something to substitute that with. And in the beginning, sure, straws, but also the mentality and that there's something good out there, a good reason, health, but yes, I believe in a higher power, and I would ask that higher power, and I even do today, thank you for keeping me nicotine free. And that's important. Nicotine comes in all forms. My partner, husband, quit nicotine twice. He quit smoking, but went to snuff, and so he was dipping when I met him, but yet he had to give that up too. Well, that was fun. But, I couldn't remember him dipping. He dipped without, he swallowed it. I hope his gut's okay. So he wasn't spitting. So you don't know this person's even dipping. But so then when he quit, you don't even know he's quit. You just all of a sudden know he's angry, because unfortunately, that's what happens. You get kind of tense and angry, and you're trying to handle everything all by yourself. So I can't handle everything all by myself. So I have to pray about it and ask that power to help me handle each and every situation, not to feel like I got to do it by myself, because I can't. So there's a lot on higher power. I don't want to get a lot into that with, as far as I don't want anybody to think whatever they believe, it is strong enough. My higher power was more powerful than the nicotine. And I needed to know my higher power was stronger than the nicotine and could relieve me and give me some comfort and some peace and some serenity if I asked for it when I was fighting the nicotine battle. And so today I still say thank you, because I'm still nicotine free, and I still believe that power keeps me nicotine free every day.
I feel the same way. And, I know that one of my reasons for not quitting would be I kind of knew I was way in over my head. I didn't have any power of choice. I was going to smoke, and I was going to smoke right now, and I was going to smoke whatever you had. If I had to go through the trash and get out little cigarette butts, that's what I'm smoking, doesn't matter. I'd lost that power of control or choice. And I do believe that power greater than me played an incredible role in that whole process, because I wasn't spared the anger, the feelings, the withdrawals, but I was able to be successful in the end and continue to build on that. And I do it all the time. I say things to God like, if nothing else, thank you that I'm not smoking cigarettes and doing anything like that. Nia, do you have any questions over there for Paula about higher powers, things like that, spiritual?
Yeah, I do. For a lot of people who might not have a support system like Debi or a connection to a higher power, what is something that in those moments where you felt like you might have went in the wrong direction that could help bring those people back? Or how can they come to depend on those resources the same way that helped you?
I just don't know a substitution for a power greater than yourself. I'm sorry. All I could say is, maybe if, this isn't Debi's thing, and she might have this in her book, is some stories of people that have recovered from nicotine. So Nicotine Anonymous does have a tiny little book that might have those stories in it. I don't remember if it does or not, but something like that. Somebody, if I could read somebody else's experience of recovery, knowing that they made it through and that they too might have had that difficulty, but they didn't pick up. The most important thing is not to pick up, because once you pick up, you have to start all over. And I'm not going to start all over real soon. If I pick up, I'm going to smoke for a while. I may not ever end up stopping again. Mm-hmm. It may take another little 2 or 3 cigarettes to get over the harshness and the bleh of smoking, because if you're addicted, you know that you're going to get past that bleh of the smoke, and then you're going to continue. So I need to know somebody else didn't give in and that they walked through that moment of hard time. This is my favorite. This is my favorite story. I think about it often. It was my father was in the hospital, and he was struggling with cancer. And I would take my mother to the hospital to see him. And my mother only smoked with me. I smoked a light menthol and a long light menthol, and she liked it. My other sister smoked, but she didn't like what she smoked. So she only smoked with me. And so we got out of the hospital, and I got in the car, and I'm like, damn, if I had a cigarette, I'd smoke it. And she's like, damn, if you had a cigarette, I'd smoke it, because it was just that kind of stressful situation. My father's dying, and I just wanted to relieve myself of that horrible feeling of knowing that. But luckily I didn't have any cigarettes in my pack, but yet just saying that out loud, that yes, I want to smoke, but I'm not going to, sometimes just admitting it. Trying to act like I don't want to smoke was, to me, is the wrong thing. Admitting that I need or want to smoke, I'm not that I really need, well, yeah, in my mind, I needed to smoke, but I wanted to smoke, but that I didn't really have to, but yet just relieving my mind of that obsession, and then find something else to do, which was just to drive away or whatever, walk away, do something else, pick something else up to do. I did a whole lot of things that I probably wouldn't have done other than that, like when I wanted to smoke and I couldn't, I would just do a chore, read and I'm a physical person. So if I want to distract myself from something, I would physically have to do something else. And that was the only other thing I knew. If I didn't have a higher power, I would have to just do the opposite of what I thought. If I'm thinking, oh, I need a cigarette, I would have to go do something else. I'd have to physically change my direction so that I wouldn't be thinking about the cigarette. I don't know if that's
I had a practical deal with myself that if I was ever going to smoke, it wouldn't be just bum one cigarette. I had to full on commit because I knew better, just like you were saying, Paula. So I had my thing that said, you're going to have to go and buy 100 cartons of cigarettes.
Yeah.
So what happened to me was I was dating some guy, he was a smoker, and it wasn't an event. It was just on a Tuesday. And I said, you know what? He'd been smoking around me, and we'd been dating almost a year, and I'd smelled that smoke and not being judgmental. And I just went, you know what? I'm going to smoke. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go get 100 cartons of cigarettes. I'm doing it right now. And so I knew that meant I was going to have to go to the bank. I was going to have to take money out of savings, because at that point, cartons of cigarettes were like, what, $40 a carton, $50 a carton? I don't even know. And so I knew I was going to have to go to the bank, and I went, the bank's still open? I'm going. I am going. I had my Texas heels dug in the dirt, and I was going. You're not stopping me. So I got in the car and I did that one quick thing. I said, God, if this isn't a good idea, do something, and do something now. Not that involves a car wreck. I don't want to have a car wreck, but if something needs to happen, you better, that's how I talk to God. I said, you better do it right now, because I'm going. And all of a sudden, this light spirit came over me, and I just started laughing. I just went, what in the world? This is the stupidest thing you've ever done. By the time you get to the third carton of cigarettes, they're going to be so nasty. And what are you going to do? Put them in a freezer? You're going to have to buy a deep freeze to put them in. That's where we're going after all these years. That's what's going to happen. And I just found myself laughing. Now, that did not come from me. That laughter, that sense of humor, that wash of light did not come from me, because I was hell-bent on smoking. You're not going to stop me. But that was one of my funniest times. And then I went, now I amped it up to have to buy 300 cartons of cigarettes. So if I ever want to smoke a cigarette again, I'm going to have to go find 300 cartons of cigarettes, and that'll be probably my retirement. So that's kind of fun. So, well, Paula, this has just been so special, and you are a special person in my life, and I'm so proud of all that you've accomplished. And there are few people who have stayed off of cigarettes since 2003. And I really want to appreciate that for all of our listeners. We have quite a few subscribers on our channel and people that are listening. It's always good to hear somebody besides me talking to them. So has all this brought up some memories from you that you had kind of not thought about in a lot of years, just knowing this was coming up?
Oh yeah, just even like I said, all those things, the things that, even my little doggy, oh, my poor little Pepper, that I smoked and made her sneeze all the time. Yeah, it has brought up a lot. And, but also to still make me so grateful that I'm not smoking. I'll see a person hang with a cigarette hanging out their mouth or in their hand and still just be so grateful that that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
So my little next door neighbor over here smokes constantly. So I'm glad it's not me. But
and
it's been real fun.
For folks who go to the podcast and who are listening and who are thinking, okay, I got it. I'm going to quit on self-will. I got the point. I see what's going on here. Not going to do it. I have a friend who said, I'm going to go on this wonderful spiritual yoga retreat and I'm not going to smoke for the 7 days of the retreat. And I went, great. She goes, because I got it. I listened to the first 3 podcasts, episodes. I got it. She came back. She goes, I couldn't quit for an hour. All I did was think about quitting for an hour. And then I thought, well, it's been almost an hour. And then she said the whole bargaining thing was already in place. She said, I smoked the whole time. Through the yoga sessions, I was sitting there doing yoga with a cigarette in my mouth. And I mean, it's a mighty foe. So what final words do you have for people who go to the podcast, start listening and think maybe they can shortcut it or not do some of the activities? And some of them are fun. Some of them are not fun, but some of them are really fun. Some of the things to do, like going to a sporting activity, taking up a sport that takes 2 hands, playing ball with your kids in the yard, or taking the dog for a walk and playing ball with the dog. It's really hard to smoke and play ball with a dog and pet a dog at the same time. I had to make amends to my dog too. That was the one. People were bad, and there were some children that I had smoked right in the face of. But what my little dog. And so what suggestions or advice do you have for people? And then Nia's going to ask you one follow-up question for that. So what kind of suggestions do you have for people who want to just kind of take the easy way, or what seems like the easy way?
Well, there isn't an easier or softer way than really facing yourself in the situation. But, and being honest with yourself that you're truly addicted. I would say be tough on yourself doing the little program, but be easy on yourself and forgiving of yourself with your attitude and your behavior, just wear it like just breathe into it. Don't forget to breathe. Number one, don't forget to breathe. Think about how you smoke a cigarette and then blow it out, breathe like that, and it's going to help you get past it a whole lot easier too, because I inhaled a cigarette. If somebody told me I looked like I was smoking a joint, I inhaled it and hold it and then blow it out. But if you breathe like that, just even while you're doing this whole thing, it will, trying not to smoke, it will actually help you. It will help you let go of the desire to smoke.
Yeah. And that it is so important to be easy on myself, because everything from the packaging, do you know that there were focus group studies done to choose the color of red for the Marlboro package?
No.
Based on who that would appeal to. So
right.
Take that and then go with Virginia Slims, and then go with my brand of choice, which was Benson and Hedges, and that light green box. Hundreds right. and hundreds and hundreds of focus tests to see which is going to be the most appealing. The Joe Camel thing, making that cool. I mean, right. People, we don't know what we're up against. They got you at hello. The first puff of that cigarette, which would normally be a revulsion, there are chemicals in that substance that immediately target parts of the brain, the pleasure centers of the brain, and the same thing with the vape stuff. And they go, oh, well, it's a new flavor. And so there can't be anything wrong with it when it's a new flavor. Well, that flavor is targeting a specific part of the brain to keep you wanting to buy more of that because it tastes awful. It smells awful when you're around all the cloud. So Nia, what do you have as a last question for Paula as we wrap things up?
This last question is from me. What, for people who are in the midst of quitting or considering quitting, and they're like, I don't know if I can do this, what are 3 words, Paula, that describe how you feel right now that they should look forward to?
Happy, joyous, and free. Yeah, I'm happy. I wasn't always happy smoking. I'm free. I have a choice to go in anywhere, do anything I want because I don't have to be outside smoking. You know, and joyous just makes, you know, it's joyful to feel like you can just live life without having to be hooked on something. You know, that cigarette owned me. It owned me. I had to go for it every time it called my name in my addiction. So I'm, you know, all that happy, joyous, and free is the 3 things I think of it. And I didn't even know what that really meant before I got it. So, you know, people might hear those words and go, oh yeah, but they don't know until they're not smoking. So it's bigger than what you think, the happiness and the joy and the freedom of not being hooked on a cigarette.
Yeah.
It is. It's a tremendous freedom. Every bit of it's good. The judging other people, not so good. But then, you know, just have to keep moving away. So that's all the time we have with Paula. Hour goes so fast when we're doing these. What an honor to have you with us here today, Paula. And I want to thank all of you who listened and who are following the program. I mean, you can absolutely do this. If Paula and I can do it, and if you knew us, you would know. If we can do it, believe me, it's a piece of cake for you. Today is the 24th. It's the day of my 36th year smoking cigarettes. Bless all y'all and Nia, as always. You are just the best little running buddy. She's got her finger on the pulse of social media. And remember her wonderful new podcast. And remind me the name of that podcast one more time.
Foot on Your Neck.
Foot on Your Neck. I like that. That's what, yes, that's a wonderful title. And so we'll listen in on that. Remember that you can see this podcast on YouTube and you can stream the audio on Quit Smoking with Debi Hall and on Debi's Diner. So that closes out our program. This is free. It's free to everybody. If you get excited and you want to generously donate $1 or a nickel to the cause, that's great too. Otherwise, I want to thank all you all for being here. Have a great day and thank you all. And remember, quitting smoking is a blessing for you, your animals, the planet, and your family. Bye, y'all.